Hello, and welcome to today's show, Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, international leadership expert and trusted advisor. Welcome to Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm delighted that you joined me today. Hey, I want to give a great big shout out and thank you to all of you listening today all around the world. I'm delighted and so grateful that you joined me. I want to let you know that I've made a few changes to my podcast. The first change is that I want you to know a little bit more about me and why you can now find my podcasts under the heading of management on Spreaker.com. That's right. So, this isn't news to my regular listeners, but if you're just finding me and tuning in for the very first time, I want you to know that I am a leader and an entrepreneur. In fact, I have founded or co-founded not one, not two, but three successful businesses. Woohoo! In fact, I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years. Before that, I worked in corporate America. I also worked in higher education as an administrator and as a professor. In fact, I still do a little professing every now and then. I'm also a founding partner with the John Maxwell team, and I'm also one of their faculty members. So, if you need a dynamic speaker to open or close an event, or if you need a caring and experienced coach, or perhaps you need a trusted advisor, a thought partner to work with you on your strategic plan or your vision for your organization, I am here to help you. So drop me a note and let's talk about how I can serve you and add value to you and your team. You can connect with me via email at info at gloriaburgess.com. That's info at gloriaburgess.com. Or you can connect with me via LinkedIn or Facebook. Now, for LinkedIn, you just look me up. I'm Dr. Gloria J. Burgess. And later on in this podcast, I'll tell you how to find me easily on Facebook. All right? Okay. Again, I'm delighted and so grateful that you joined me today. I sure hope you're enjoying a fabulous day and that you're having a fantastic week. Because you know what? In the grand song of the universe, life is very short. It's short and sweet and oh so precious. So, I hope you're making a difference in your own life because you know what? When you do, you also make a difference in someone else's life. Now, a lot of folks really want to make their life count for something, but they don't know how, or it just seems so big and overwhelming, they just don't know how or where to begin. So they ask me, Dr. Gloria, how do you do that? How do you make your life count? Well, let me tell you, it's very simple. Very, very simple. You make your life count day by day, step by step, smile by smile, every single day, 365, 24/7. You make your life count by being there for someone who needs you, by being an uplifter or an encourager, right? You make your life count by reaching out to someone on your team or someone in your organization or in your community. Now, if you're at home, you can reach out to a neighbor, or even closer to home, you can call your mom or your dad, right? Or call your sister or brother and simply tell them, I love you. Now, you can also turn off your social media for a while and use that time to write someone a thoughtful note or card. I know I just love getting handwritten notes. They're such a wonderful sight in the midst of that stack of bills, right? Or you know what? Send somebody you care about a beautiful photo or a link to a beautiful song. If you're like me, you can go onto your deck or into your yard and pick a handful of flowers or herbs. And you know what? You write a note or pick a bunch of flowers, not because it's a special occasion like a birthday or anniversary. You smile, you hold someone's hand, You write that special card or note. You give someone that bunch of beautiful flowers just because. Those just because moments are the ones I love the most. Can I just tell you something? Those simple, loving acts of kindness and generosity make a huge difference in my life. You can make a difference too. You can make a difference simply by being thankful for who you are, being thankful for whose you are, and by being thankful that when you know whose you are, you can lead. You can lead with steadiness, you can lead with confidence, you can lead with mastery through any situation. Now, let me just stop right here for a moment. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I'm not a leader. Is she talking to me? Maybe you're a doctor or nurse or teacher, or maybe you're an entrepreneur like me, or a student in college and you have no idea of what you want to be or do after you graduate. Well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter what you do in your professional life, and it doesn't matter what life stage you're in, you are a leader. Now, how can I say that with such assurance? Here's how. If you are alive and participating in this great adventure we call life, then you are a leader. Maybe you're the only person that you're leading. Somebody has to be in charge, though, right? And that's you. You are in charge of yourself, right? So you can make a difference in your own life, and you can also make a difference in someone else's life. When you know how to lead yourself, you can transfer that knowledge. You can transfer those skills, those competencies, so that you can lead well in any circumstances. Now, today, we're going to talk about how to do just that. We're going to talk about leading through the storm. Because if you can do that, if you can confidently and courageously lead through the storm, then you will be equipped to lead yourself and others in any other situation that comes up in your life. Now remember, how you live is how you lead, right? So, what you're going to hear about today, you can actually apply it in your daily life as well. What I'm going to share with you today is a wonderful example of what legacy living, make your life count, is all about. Now, before I delve into today's podcast, let me remind you, you can learn more about legacy living, make your life count, by visiting the Gloria Burgess website. That's Gloria, B as in boy, URGESS.com. The Gloria Burgess website. Again, it's Gloria, B as in boy, URGESS.com, or by visiting Facebook. And that's facebook.com/ Dr. Gloria Burgess, PhD /. Okay, so doctor is Dr. Gloria Burgess, PhD /. Now, more about leading through the storm. When you find yourself knee deep in the middle of difficulty, immersed in the middle of adversity, smack dab in the middle of a crisis, in the center of a storm, there are many, many things that come to mind, right? Many ways that we can respond. And when you think about it, they all boil down to these four responses. You can fight, you can take flight, you can freeze, or you can collaborate. Let's take a look at what these phases, okay, these responses mean. You can fight. In other words, you can try to beat it down, stare it down, or wrestle down that difficulty or that struggle or whatever storm you're in the midst of. You can just, kind of punch it and beat it and try to work it to the ground, right? So that's what fight is all about. Now, another response is taking flight. You can try to fly away, get the heck out of Dodge, so to speak. But you know what? Sooner or later, you're still going to have to face whatever the crisis is. You're going to have to face the music, so to speak, right? Another response is freezing, right? You can freeze. In this case, you get so caught up in your circumstances, in whatever situation you're in, you just kind of get numbed out. Or you become paralyzed, so you can't think or act or do anything. Now, I recall a time when I was traveling all by myself, traveling solo. In fact, I was in the middle of a sabbatical and I had accumulated enough frequent flyer miles that I could travel around the world for free. Imagine that. Pretty amazing, right? Now, I love the ocean. So I planned my itinerary so I could visit locations where I could stay close to the water. For part of the trip, I was in the United Kingdom. Now, I just love the country of Wales. So here I was, staying in this lovely little place in a small village in Wales for about a week or so. And my apartment was on a hillside that overlooked the Welsh Sea. Well, during my stay, I experienced one of the worst storms I'd ever experienced in my entire life. Now, this wasn't just one of those circumstances or situations, this was a literal storm. In fact, I was right in the center of one of those 100-year storms. I'd gone to bed and I was awakened by what I thought was someone pounding very loudly on my door. But then I realized that what sounded like someone hammering on my door was actually the sound from the wind howling outside, rattling the windows, making the floorboards and the wallboards just creak and groan. When I looked out of the window, it was pitch black. I mean, this was a small little village with no street lamps, right? So I turned on the radio to get a news report about the storm. I could only get one station that came in clearly, and I listened hard. Even though the reception was quite clear on the radio, I realized that I could barely understand what they were saying. I could only recognize maybe every fifth or sixth word. And then I realized they were speaking in another language. They were speaking Gaelic, not English. Now, since Gaelic has a number of words that are very close to German, which I knew, I was able to piece together a little bit of what I was hearing. And what I heard was this was a ferocious storm with winds up to 100 miles an hour. Now, meanwhile, as I was trying to get a read on the storm, the wind was gaining steam, gaining force. In fact, the sounds that woke me up seemed to be much, much louder than before. The floorboards were not only groaning, they seemed to be moving and rumbling beneath my feet. Ugh, right? I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'll never see my family again. And the pounding at the door seemed to be more like a bulldozer trying to ram right through the door. Meanwhile, I was cycling back and forth between fight, flight, and freeze. Now, I must admit that I was mostly in the fight stage, right? Now, sometimes we say, don't just stand there, do something. So I most definitely was in the do something mode. One of the things I started doing was to move the furniture around. That's right. I started moving furniture. I moved the bed so it wasn't near the window in case the glass blew in, right? And then I moved the dresser and a big wardrobe to block the door in case it decided it wanted to blow in. I mean, I looked for anything that was heavy and tried to shore up my surroundings so I could be safe and secure from the storm. I must have moved furniture for almost an hour. At least it seemed like that long. And during that time, the storm showed no signs of easing up. And then something inside me clicked. And as the wind continued to howl, as the bulldozer still rammed outside my door, as the floor and the wallboards continued to rumble, I just stood stark still. I remember just being totally quiet, being totally calm. And I heard the voice of the Holy Spirit saying to me, "Be still, be still, and know that I am God." So that brings me back to the four responses. The four responses we can have when we lead in the midst of the storm. What are those responses? Here they are again: fight, flight, freeze, or we can collaborate. Right? You can fight, you can try to take flight, you can freeze, or you can collaborate. Now, I love this last response because when you think about it, many of us don't go there as our first response, right? I mean, we don't think about collaborating as our first response, especially when we're caught up in the middle of difficulty or we're in the center of adversity. So I heard again, "Be still and know that I am God." And I knew in that moment, I knew that my choice, my best choice, was to collaborate. As I said earlier, I was traveling all by myself, traveling solo. So who would be my collaborator? Well, it was the one who called my name. The one who called my name in the midst of the roaring wind, in the midst of the roiling sea. I knew that my collaborator was the one and only God Almighty. Now, even if you're not a believer, I want to invite you to consider having a power outside of yourself as your friend, helper, and collaborator. Here's what I know. Psalm 23 is one of those scriptures that keeps calling my name. It is one of those passages I return to again and again in my life. And when I forget about it, you know what? I get signals that I should turn to that psalm again. And each time I return to it, this beautiful psalm reveals more of its layers, more of its textures, more of its gravity to me. In the middle of this powerful storm, in this tiny little village on the coast of Wales, the words in that passage came to mind for me. That was the psalm that settled into my spirit during this time of adversity, during this time of crisis, during this 100-year storm. Psalm 23. These are the words that my collaborator brought to me. Why? Because Psalm 23 focuses on leading and leadership. It specifically focuses on leading in the middle of the storm. It focuses on not fighting the storm, not taking flight from the storm, not freezing up in the storm. It is about leading through the storm. It's about how to lead even if you don't think you can. It's about how to lead even when it seems as though everything is against you. Listen, when you feel like calling it quits, when you feel like you've done all you can, when you feel like you just can't go on, you can't make it another day. Psalm 23 is all about leading and knowing that you are not alone. You are not in this all by yourself. This amazing passage tells us right up front, right from Jump Street, it tells us that you have a friend, you have a companion, you have someone you can lean on, you have someone who will co-labor with you. In fact, that's what a true collaborator is. Someone who is in it with you, not just part of the way, but all the way, right? Someone who will see you through the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys, someone who will be with you and maybe even carry you when you need someone else, when you need someone other than yourself to lift the load. May I share this beautiful passage with you? Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the quiet waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. You are right by my side. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever." Amazing, right? Now, if you think you know this beautiful psalm, I want you to think again. Be still and know that this is God, the storm generator and the peacemaker, speaking directly to us, speaking his marvelous words through the pen of King David, right? I know that the more I read and hear, the more that I read and really listen to this psalm, the more I learn about life and the more I learn about leadership. So again, if you think you know this wonderful psalm, stop, look, and listen again. Did you know that there are almost 20 times in this passage where there is a direct or indirect reference to lead, leading, leader, and leadership? Yes, there is. Okay? Now, there are only 6 verses in this very short psalm. And in 6 verses, there are 20 direct or indirect references to lead, leading, leader, and leadership. Let's take a look at them. Specifically, let's take a look at what you can learn about leading through the storm. First of all, Psalm 23 says that you have a friend in the Good Shepherd. And more than that, it says, you know what? You have a collaborator. Yes, you have a collaborator. It says it right there in the very first line. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my collaborator." What this says to me is that I am not alone. He tells you that as a leader, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to go it alone. You don't have to do anything alone. You don't have to do anything all by yourself. Why? Because you know that He is walking with you, the King of Kings. He says, "I am under the protection, love, and guidance of the best keeper of all." That's what the writer of the psalm says, right? The Good Shepherd is telling us something very important here. This leader is telling us something that we need to pay attention to. He's telling us that He is with us, that He is our shelter, that He will look after you, and He will never forsake you. He will never leave you alone. He assures us because He is our keeper, because He is our provider. So we don't have to worry. We don't have to be concerned. We don't have to get stressed out. He tells us that we have everything. We will lack for nothing. Now, what is he saying here? He's telling us that he's our provider. So even when you think you can't get up, or you can't step up, or you can't even stand up, he's got you covered. That's what he told me when I was in the middle of that storm when I was in Wales. I am your collaborator. Count on me. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other leadership lessons in this psalm. Let's take a look at what else these words teach us about leading through the storm, leading through adversity, leading when you're in the middle of a snag with your coworker, when you're struggling with what's happening on your team or in your organization, or something just isn't right between you and your son or your daughter, or maybe you just got a layoff notice, or you got fired and you don't know how you're going to make ends meet. Or maybe you're just feeling down and out. You feel lonely and isolated. You don't know who to call, or maybe you know who to call, but you don't want to call because your friend maybe they'll get angry with you. Or maybe they're feeling lonely and isolated too, so you don't want to be a bother. And you just don't want to be a burden to them or anyone else. Well, can I just tell you something? Psalm 23 offers us good news. This passage offers us good news about leading through those difficult times, the times when you're lonely, when you're feeling separated, desolate, when you're feeling isolated, when you feel like you just can't make it through. You know what? This passage comes to the rescue. The second verse gives us just what we're looking for. It says, "He makes me to lie down in green pastures." Goes on to say, "He leads me beside the quiet waters." These words lead us into a place of great, great rest, a place of great tranquility, a place of great comfort. Now, this leader doesn't literally make you do anything, but he does what any good leader would do. And what's that? Well, he makes a way. He makes a way for you so that you can lay your burdens down, right? And so that you can actually recline, lay down on those luscious green grasses, right? So you can take a humble chill pill, so that you can hit the pause button in the midst of the storms in your life, so that you can just say, ah, and you can linger for a while in a place of deep rest and rejuvenation and restoration. A place where you can take shelter from the storm or even step out of the storm for just a little while so you can get your groove back, so you can get your rhythm back, right? So you can get back the music of your life and back into a state of harmony. The leader is telling you that you can get through this. You don't have to walk this path all by yourself. You can actually give the load that you carry away. Because guess what? He will carry it for you. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be anxious about anything. You can simply give those burdens away. So, at the end of the day, you can choose to be stressed out in the storm, right? Or you can choose to be wondrously amazed and explore the possibilities of what the storm you're going through has to offer. Because every storm has a gift in it. Every storm has a possibility in it, right? The leader in this passage teaches us more about leading through the storm. Maybe your boss is giving you a hard time at work. Or maybe you were passed over again for that job you wanted. Or maybe you just keep hitting one snag after another in your relationships. It just seems like whatever you say, you seem to be saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong people. We've all been there, right? Can I just tell you something? Even when we hit those speed bumps in our encounters with our boss at work, in our career, in our relationships, the words in Psalm 23 tell us to hold on, to simply hold on. The leader in this passage helps us. How? By helping us focus on who we are and helping us focus on what we're here for. In other words, he helps us focus on our why. So the shepherd helps me to get back on track, to walk on the path that's good for me, to walk on the path that is aligned with who I am and why I'm here on the planet, right? So my why is about my purpose, right? So even though I walk through the darkest of valleys, I will not be afraid. Why? Because you are there with me. The leader, in the person of the shepherd, lets us know that he is here to provide guidance and direction. In another podcast, I talk about the lessons in Psalm 23 from the perspective of living well in the midst of a crisis, right? And in that podcast, I shared a bit more context, which also has to do with leading through the storm. So I'm going to share a bit more of that with you here. Now, when I talk about guidance and direction, I'm talking about leadership, right? But I'm also talking about living, because how you live is how you lead. Now, did you know that there's only one kind of work and only one kind of worker that requires both a rod and a staff? That's right. Only one kind of work and one kind of worker that requires both a rod and a staff. That's right. Now, that's the work of herding sheep and the work of a sheep herder, the work of a shepherd. The work of a leader is exactly the same. Philip Keller wrote a book many years ago called Psalm 23. Now, Keller is a pastor who grew up in East Africa. There, he herded and cared for sheep. He was a shepherd. So he knows from direct experience what the writer of Psalm 23 knew from his own experience as a shepherd boy caring for his sheep. Keller knows firsthand about caring for, protecting, providing guidance, and providing direction to sheep. Now, he also knew that sheep can get themselves into a lot of trouble, a lot of difficulty, self-imposed storms, so to speak, right? And like all shepherds, he knew that one of his primary responsibilities was to lead his sheep well through those self-imposed storms so that they could be healthy, well-fed, well-nourished, and want for nothing. Okay? So that they could get the good rest they needed and ultimately so that they could flourish. So the shepherd leads his sheep by providing guidance and also direction to his flock. And this is accomplished in many, many ways, including using two key tools of the trade, a rod and a staff. When I was researching this podcast, I found a lot of information about how the shepherd uses the rod and the staff in leading his sheep. But before use comes the actual making of the rod, right? So great care is taken to select the right wood for the rod. Great care is taken to carve it so that it fits perfectly into the shepherd's hand. Because the rod actually acts as an extension of the shepherd's right arm. Now, the rod is used for many, many things. For example, it's used to ward off dangerous beasts, right, and prey. Sometimes the rod would be hurled into the air, according to Keller, and into the bushes to alert a wayward sheep to come back into the fold. The shepherd also uses the rod as an extension of his hands to separate the fleece in order to inspect the sheep for pests and cleanliness to ensure that the sheep are sound physically, sound in body, right? Now, the staff is also an instrument to help the shepherd to lead his sheep. It's used primarily to direct the sheep or the lambs in their habits and ways, to lead them up a hill where the best grazing lands are, or down into a valley to get water and to rest, right? Okay, the staff is also used to kind of nudge the sheep or the lambs to keep up with the rest of the flock. Sometimes the shepherd uses the staff to express love for the sheep or lambs. This leader talks about the often strenuous labors of love the shepherd would endure in order to provide for his sheep to live well during the hot, dry summer months in the hills of East Africa. He tells about finding and plucking out poisonous weeds from the hills so the sheep don't inadvertently eat the poisons and become sickly, or even worse, so that they don't become deathly ill. Now, like any good leader, he clears the deck, right? In this case, the leader is clearing the deck of toxins and poisons. He clears away temptations and distractions to keep the fold, or his team in this case, or the family, right? Okay, focused on providing value and being aligned with our values and purpose. When we are aligned with our why, when we stay on the path that allows us to express our gifts and bring our best selves to the table, this is our opportunity to bring goodness and mercy along with us, so that we might be a blessing and an offering to others. Now, before I talk about this very last verse, I want you to share once again in this amazingly simple but beautifully profound psalm. And this time, as you listen, be sure to tune into the language of leading and leadership. Okay? See if you can find those 17 or 18 references here. Okay? The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the quiet waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I am not afraid. I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. It runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So let me say a few words about this very last verse, and specifically how it connects to leading through the storm. Again, it says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Now, this passage is inviting us to share the wealth, to share the wealth of who we are, to share the wealth of ourselves. As leaders, one of the many gifts we can offer others is the gift of love, which is an aspect of both goodness and mercy, right? In fact, in some translation, the word mercy is translated as love. Lee Bowman and Terrence Deal, two of my favorites when it comes to experts on leadership, they remind us of this important fact. The essence of leadership is not giving things or even providing visions. It is offering oneself and one's spirit. I'm going to repeat that. The essence of leadership is not giving things or even providing visions. It is offering oneself and one's spirit. This last verse reminds us that we can offer ourselves, we can offer our spirit, we can leave a footprint, a special fragrance of who we are wherever we go. As leaders, we can be a fragrant bouquet or we can be a basket of thorns. We can be a current of beatitude or we can be a stream of blessings. Either way, we leave a footprint. We make a deposit. That deposit is our legacy that flows from us into another person, and from that person into their family, into their workplace, into a neighborhood, into a community, a country, a continent, our world. We can create that kind of footprint, that kind of legacy, not just once in a while, but you know what? We get the opportunity to create that kind of legacy every single day. Remember, how you live is how you lead. If you can lead through the storm, you will be equipped to lead in any circumstances. All right? All right. So, if you learned something in this podcast today, be sure to tell somebody. Share the wealth, right? Share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, so they can be lifted up and inspired and equipped just like you. You know what? One of the biggest gifts you can give to someone else is to let goodness and mercy, goodness and love, goodness and generosity flow through you out and into the life of someone else that you love, someone else that you care about, so that you can make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. Be sure to join me next time as we continue to celebrate the majestic music of your life. I also want to celebrate you for making your life count. Now, if you missed last week's podcast or any part of this week's podcast, you can listen to the recording at your convenience. You can even listen to it on the go. Check us out at Spreaker.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, Alexa, iHeartRadio, and many, many other places. Or you can tune in right here at TalkNetworkRadio.com. That's right. That's www.talknetworkradio.com/legacyliving.html. Before I close today, I want to thank each of you for tuning in to today's podcast, for allowing me to share a bit about my journey with what legacy living is all about. Not just living and learning, but living and learning and serving so that you make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. It's about being on purpose every single day, 365, 24/7. Legacy living is a powerful way to make your life count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. Please join me again next time right here for another podcast of Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. Don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Have a fantastic day, and remember, make the days in your life count. God bless. That's our show today. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. I hope you'll join me again next time. Until then, don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Here's to you. Have a fantastic day, and be sure to make it a yes kind of day. Remember to celebrate the music of your life. Make the days in your life count.